Speaking of conflicts, little did we know we'd be in the middle of one. If you watched our coverage at the debates down in Miami, where we had the whole Salem media team down there, since we were co-presenter, you saw our pal Hugh Hewitt there as one of the co-moderators. Boy, is he getting good reviews here 2 days after the debate. Everyone's writing raves about Hugh Hewitt. It's going to go to his head. This isn't going to end well for the rest of us. We're down there with the whole team. We did our live stream before the debate out in front of the theater, and then we did something very unique. I don't think you've ever seen something like this, certainly not on cable or network. We dedicated an entire hour right here on this platform with a live stream in real time of the chaos inside the spin room, and we just bounced from person to person. We gave you the experience like you were walking through that spin room yourself. And I tried my best to ask the questions of these spinners and politicians and advocates for candidates and for the party. I tried to ask the questions that you would have asked if you were there. And we found ourselves toward the end of the night with Ronna McDaniel, the chairwoman of the RNC. And remember, this is day after the disappointing results in Virginia. And there was a lot of finger pointing going on about what happened with the Republicans in Virginia. And a lot of people wanted to know where the RNC was. Why didn't the RNC do more? Democrats got outspent by about $8 million in the state. So where was the RNC? I asked her about that. Here's what she said.
You don't let people lie about you and let it go unanswered. Let it go unanswered. If somebody's spending $30 million against you and they're lying about you and say you won't give life-saving care for miscarriages or ectopic pregnancy, you better get on TV and tell them that the voters that's a lie, or they think that's the truth. And our candidates have got to do this. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can go and say, this is where I stand. The Democrats are lying. And now let's talk about crime, schools, border, fentanyl, and national security.
I just want to clarify one quick thing, though. The RNC had no involvement in these elections in Virginia per Governor Youngkin's request?
We were told in December they didn't need us, that they had all the money and they were good. So that was the conversation.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
We'll be following up on that to find out what's that all about. That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, it was the first time that I'd heard that. Listen, if you don't know, I'm a radio host based in Washington, D.C. here. We've been covering those Virginia elections like no one else. And it makes no sense. I mean, think about it. Somebody offers you $1 million, $2 million, any kind of amount of money. You're going to refuse it, especially if you're an entity trying to win an election. We're out here winning an election. Big national party comes by and wants to infuse cash into the proceedings, and you're going to say, no, please don't. We don't want to spend too much. Who does that? Right? I don't care what your cause is. If somebody comes in, I mean, this is why the left beats us all the time. They're going to say no to Soros money? Of course not. So it made no sense. It made no logical sense that any entity, now she specifically said Governor Youngkin, the Republican governor, which also made no sense because she's the chairwoman of the RNC. She doesn't report directly to governors. She's not actually an entity of elected office. She's a party apparatus, right? The hierarchy there does not include the governor in some, unless the governor also happens to head the party in a state. No, a state has their own chairman of the parties, and those state chairmen deal directly one-on-one with the national chairwoman. That would be Ronna McDaniel. So something wasn't quite right here. And as I said in that video Wednesday night, we're going to follow up on it. And this morning, I was able to follow up with the actual chairman of the Republican Party in Virginia. This is on my radio station in Washington, D.C. And it's just audio because it's radio. There's no pictures, but bear with us for a minute and use your listening ears to see what he had to say.
So this year, Speaker Gilbert once again asked me if we could get another stipend. So I suggested to him, rather than me going to Chairwoman McDaniel directly, that simply he and I go up and have a meeting with the staff, because she's simply going to hand that off to the staff anyway. And time was of the essence. He was in D.C. a certain day. I went with him. We sat down with them. They explained to us that being a down year, it is difficult for them to fundraise because it's not a down year here, but it's a down year everywhere else. And so
I want to pause there for a sec here. This is Chairman Rich Anderson, by the way, is his name. Good guy, I think. I've been covering him for many years. He's actually helped build the Republican Party in Virginia from a place where it was in pretty bad shape several years ago. And he's talking about going to the RNC and saying back in 2022, they gave an infusion of cash, what they called a stipend. That's what he's referring to. And so they wanted another stipend this year around. And the RNC's response, what he just said is it's an off year. Now, it's not an off year for Virginia, but it's an off year around the country. And so he said it's hard to raise money. Let me ask you something. Have you been getting any fundraising requests from the RNC? I mean, they are raising money. By the way, not only are they raising money, but they've got a lot of money too, don't they? And I think it's worth asking what they're doing with that money if they can't give any money to a pretty important political cause in Virginia for an election that would have built momentum for Republicans going into the presidential year next year. And I think this is a fair question too. Is the RNC utilizing any of their fundraising apparatus to raise money for legal defense funds for any candidates that might be facing legal trouble right now? Because if they're raising money for that, but they're not able to raise money for winning elections, then one must ask what the RNC's job is here. What's the priority? All right, so we'll let this finish.
So they declined the request at that point. In the open media, I have read that.
I just want to be clear because Democrats outspent Republicans in this election by $8 million, and most of that was spent on deceitful ads that clearly,
of course,
that clearly worked. I just want to be clear. Had Ronna McDaniel offered money to you and the Republican Party of Virginia in the final months of this campaign, you would have accepted it.
Oh, most certainly. Now, we would have, what we asked for was a matching amount to what the DNC provided to the Democratic Party of Virginia. And the reason we did that, more than anything, it is a matter of perception. It is a matter of the optics of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I requested, would $1 million have made a difference? We can debate that till kingdom come.
But wouldn't have hurt, especially considering if you really look at how narrow some of these elections were on the important, those state Senate and House of Delegate seats that ended up making the difference. It was a very small number of votes.
Larry, the early analysis from Spirit of Virginia, the outcome was decided in this cycle about.
Oh, it cut off. The answer there is it's about a couple thousand votes. I don't know why the audio cut right there. Greg Price, do better. You could have cut that a little better, Price. That was Greg Price's clip that we ripped from Twitter there. We don't give him credit when it's a good clip, but we'll give him credit when he screws up. All right, so let me just lay this out here because this story ain't over. It's growing now, in fact, and answers need to be coming here. Questions need to be answered. The difference in the elections on Tuesday was a few thousand votes spread across like 5 different state Senate races and House of Delegate races. Those 5,000 votes go the other way. And the narrative this week is the Democrats are in free fall. The narrative is Republicans have flipped Virginia from red to purple to now, from blue. The narrative after the election, if those few thousand votes go the other way and those like 3 or 4 seats go the Republicans' way, is Virginia is now a red state, that Democrats are in trouble, that Republicans have flipped a blue state to purple and now to solid red with majorities in both chambers and every statewide seat. It's a completely different week this week in the media if those few thousand votes go the other direction. If you look at the way the media covered this, it was a bloodbath. It was a slaughter. But no, it wasn't. It was incredibly close. You could argue that Virginia's still kind of purple. But you know what the Democrats had Tuesday that Republicans didn't have? They had $1 million from the National Party flown in the final months that went to negative advertising. We did not. Republicans did not. We didn't have any money from the National Party. And why didn't we? Well, let's just remind you.
This is where I stand. The Democrats are lying. And now let's talk about crime, schools, border, fentanyl, and national security.
I just want to clarify one quick thing, though. The RNC had no involvement in these elections in Virginia per Governor Youngkin's request.
We were told in the summer they didn't need us, that they had all the money and they were good. So that was the conversation.
Thanks for your time.
That's why the National Party didn't give any money to the state of Virginia. All right, here's where we stand. Ronna McDaniel, the chairwoman of the RNC, who was getting a lot of fire because of the losses on Tuesday, she said, hey, not my fault. That was Virginia's fault. The governor said we don't need any money. So we just talked to the chairman of the Republican Party in Virginia. He said, I don't know anything about that. We asked for money. We were told we couldn't get any money. And we certainly never said that we didn't need any money. Now, obviously, it seems in that scenario that someone's lying. Well, maybe, maybe not. There's a third entity here. It's called Spirit of Virginia. It is Governor Youngkin's political apparatus in Virginia, and they did do quite a bit of on-the-ground work for these elections. Not all of it. Ultimately, the party, I mean, it's an election. The party has to do everything in the long run. But political committees do quite a bit as well. And that was Governor Youngkin's political committee. Now, when Ronna McDaniel says the governor said we don't need them, does she mean Spirit of Virginia on behalf of the governor? She might. And that's the next conversation that needs to take place. We got to find that out. But let me just say something about Ronna McDaniel's role here as the chairwoman. Because even if that's true, if what she just said is true, and when she says Governor Youngkin, she doesn't mean the Republican Party of Virginia, and she doesn't mean the governor himself, she means Spirit of Virginia, the political committee that the governor set up. If that's the case, that's still unacceptable. Ronna McDaniel does not work for Governor Youngkin, does not work for a political committee that was set up by the governor. She is accountable to the party apparatus. How does the chairman of the Republican Party in Virginia know nothing about this? How does she not pick up the phone and say, hey, Rich, I'm hearing from Spirit of Virginia that you guys got enough money. Is that true? Right? She's the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee. And the way that that organization is structured, she relates to, responds to, reports to, and is responsible to each of the states' apparatus. You don't just write off Virginia because a political committee said we don't need you. So hopefully we'll get an interview with that group either right here or on my radio show. And my question for Spirit of Virginia is really easy. All right, first of all, did you tell Ronna McDaniel you didn't need any money? And did you mean that the Republican Party doesn't need that money either? It seems pretty simple. Either way, I try not to pile on if possible. I just report information and deliver it because that's sort of lost these days. But from my perspective, looking at this whole thing, I think Ronna McDaniel's to blame either way. She's either not being completely genuine with that story, or she was talking to the wrong people and not talking to the people that she's responsible to. And that is the Republican Party in Virginia. Well, anyway, it's kind of fun to be in the middle of something like that broke right here. If you were watching us live that night in our debate coverage, you saw it all transpire and unfold right before your eyes. And we will continue to follow up on it, I assure you.